live. And he came to Eretz Canaan. Eretz Canaan, in contrast to Bovel, where he started, is a land where there's rain. So you have to plow the land, you have to work from daybreak to sunset, and then you have food. And if you don't work, there is no food. So he came to this land and he sees people working from the whole day, one day, next day. He says, that's the place where I want to live. Gentle work. All right. So you all know this is Pashas Vayeitseh. Again, please, if you don't understand something, I really want you to understand. If you don't understand, please stop me. Otherwise, it's going to be a lost chance. Vayeitseh means Yankov went away from his father's house, and he went into Choron. And we all know the reason why Yankov left to go to Choron. There were several things. One is that we know that he had to run away from his brother, because his brother Esav was already thinking about killing him. Rivka told him. And the other thing is that Yitzchak told him that he should not marry from Canaan, the Canaanim. He should go to his mother's family to get married. So Yankov left, and Yankov knew that this time that he is going, it's different than when Eliezer went to get a wife for Yitzchak. Eliezer went to get a wife and came right back. One day, in and out. This wasn't what Yankov was going to do. Yankov left to go to Choron and stay there. Because in addition to getting married, he had to have the safety, protect himself against Esav. So he went to Choron, which means he went to actually establish himself in Choron. So now we can imagine what that means to Yankov. Yankov was, as the Torah says, Ish Tov. He was a truthful person. He didn't know how to lie. He didn't know how to cheat. Didn't know how to be devious, going sideways. He only knew the straight path. He was going to Choron, and Choron is a totally different world. And he's going there, and he's going to have to live there and get married there. So Yankov also knew that in addition to these two things, that he has to get married and save himself from Esav, there's another additional very important reason why Hashem is making that he should go there. That is that Yankov has to elevate, has to purify, has to bring Kedusha into Choron. Choron is a place that there is a lot of Klipa, Avodah Zarah, and Yankov had to be there for a number of years in order to change that, to change it a little bit, to make a deeper holy impression. So he knew that he had to work through Choron. And this is, in general, the principle of Yidden going to Golus. Golus for Yidden means to affect the world. Eden had to affect the world. This was our destiny. This was our mission as a nation. Except that it could have happened in two ways. In the time of Shlomo HaMelech, time of Shlomo HaMelech, all the nations came to him. Shlomo HaMelech taught wisdom to all the nations, but they came to him, he didn't have to go to them. But later on, when Eden were not living up to the level of Shlomo HaMelech's time, so they were not accomplishing their task in purifying the world from their own homeland. And that's why they had to be sent out into the world to work directly in the world itself. This is essentially the union of Golus. This is why, just parenthetically, this is why there is hardly a place in the world where there are no Jews. There's no such thing. Wherever you go, there is a Jew. Like in India, right? Hamon and Islam, but we had this horrendous tragedy in India. You think, who is in India? A big operation. Thank you. In China? Mitzrayim? Yes. What?
Aren't you not allowed to go there?
That's also true. You're not allowed to settle there. There's a whole discussion. The Rambam lived in Mitzrayim. Did you know that? The Rambam lived in Mitzrayim. He was the doctor of the Sultan. He was a doctor of the palace.
Tiferes also lived in Mitzrayim before Israel, yeah?
There is in Sfas.
Before Sfas.
I don't know.
I thought he came from Mitzrayim before.
Maybe. That I don't know. But I know the Rambam lived for many years in Mitzrayim. And you're right. There's a prohibition in the Torah. It says you should not go to settle. You're allowed to go there for business, but not to settle. But what happened was the Rambam was running away from Europe. He couldn't be where he was. It was dangerous. Eden were driven around. And he came to Mitzrayim. On those days, Mitzrayim was a welcoming place for Eden. So this is how he saved himself. And there are Egyptian Jews. I know Egyptian Jews who came from Mitzrayim just now. So, yeah. Not too many, but there are all over, everywhere. So, an interesting thing. We see right away how Yankiv got involved in his duty of working in Choron. You learn that when he came to Choron, the first time when he first came to Choron, he saw a well and shepherds and sheep sitting around the well. Right? What did Yankiv do? They're total strangers. They're strangers in a strange land. He has no idea what they're doing. He right away approaches them and says, "Hey brothers, what are you doing? Why are you sitting around? Why aren't you taking the sheep to the field?" Right? What's his business what they are doing? He's intruding in other people's business. It's total strangers. So Rashi says right away, what was Yankiv telling them? Yankiv said, if you remember, Rashi explains, Yankiv said to them, he says, either these sheep are yours or you're working from other people. If you're working for other people and you're not taking the sheep to herding, to the field, you're shortchanging. You know what shortchanging means? You're not doing your day's work. You're stealing from your boss. He's paying you for a day's work, and you're not doing your day's work. And if the sheep are yours, so why should you waste the opportunity of herding the sheep? Why are you shortchanging yourself? What is in this message? You have to be honest people. You have to put in day's work. Don't be lazy. Don't be lazy for yourself, and don't cheat your boss in such a nice a side way, but Yankov immediately started working on the Bnei Choron. And immediately started learning them there is right and wrong. You have to be honest. He didn't say to them, you're not honest. But he was asking them, what are you doing? Why come you sitting around? So in other words, immediately upon entering the Choron, the first thing when he meets, he immediately feels his responsibility to do something and to respond to the situation. Which means that Yankov came into Choron not to be a visitor, not to sit on the side and say, oh, look what they're doing, look what they're doing. No. He is becoming part. He goes right in there and engages them and gets involved with them. Because that's his mission. This is why he's there. Now, at the same time, he has this mission. And he gets involved with people of Choron. This is also going to be interfering with his own life. While he is talking to these shepherds, he can sit and learn. He can daven. He can be involved in his own thing. He has to go down there and figure out what are they doing. Oh, they're stealing. Maybe they're stealing from their boss. What made him think of that? Because he started thinking with from their own perspective, with their own approach. So he got in, so to speak, into the trenches with them. When you get into the trenches, what happens? You get dirty. So Yankov knew that he's going to have to get dirty. Clearly he kept his mind above. He knew what he was doing. But it was a dangerous venture. It was a dangerous venture. You learned that when Yankov lied down to sleep in the middle of the field, right? Yankov slept in Rashi explains it was Har HaMoriah, it was Yerushalayim, and he stopped there to sleep. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, he fell asleep, he went to sleep. So it's,
Wasn't he steal all his clothes? So how did what's the name? Stole all his clothes?
Rifas, not his clothes. Gold.
All his gold?
Yeah, not his clothes. No, all his money. He didn't take his clothes away. Yankov, he left his home, but he took money with him. And now he comes empty-handed. So Rashi explains, why was he empty? How can Yankov be empty? He comes from such a home. Because a leaf is chased after him and the leaf is looking away from him. So it says that Yankov lied down to sleep in this place. Before he did that, he made a fence of stone. He took from the stones of the place and he put under his head and he slept on this stone. And Rashi says, why did he put stones around him? Because Shehoya Yore Michayes Rois. He was scared of wild beasts, of wild animals. So to protect himself, he put stones around him. Where did he put the stones? Around his head. Then I'll show you some, that's around his head. The wild beasts are going to attack his head and about his feet. He doesn't mind if his feet get eaten up. But what is putting it around his head? Clearly, it has another meaning. The meaning is that Yankov knows that he is going to Choron. And he's going to get involved with Chayes Rois. He's going to get involved with all kinds of people. And he has to be involved. He can't stay away. That's his mission. But he has to protect his head, that he shouldn't lose his head. He should know right from wrong, where he is, And as long as his head is above, he can guide himself, even in Choron. So with his head he kept above, but everything else he was involved. He was involved with them right away. How come you're sitting around not taking the sheep to herd? Then when it came to Lavan, he started working for him, and then he wanted to get married. He knew that he's dealing with Lavan, and he's dealing with a very false and tricky and conniving person, and he had to work for him. So he didn't ask him, I want to marry Rachel. He said, I'll work for you, because that's the only way that he has a chance to get his way. I'll work for you for 7 years, letting me Rachel. What happened at the end? You know what happened at the end? Huh? He gave him Leah instead of Rachel. So with all his planning and all that, with all his approaches, he knew who he was dealing with. And even so, he was involved there. He did his work. He did his work honestly. As he says later on, I worked day and night. I didn't spare any effort. It was clear to all the people around him, two things: that he was extremely honest, extremely dedicated and truthful, and at the same time, his success was completely beyond normal. So it was clear that his honesty is also beyond limit. His honesty is, he can be tricked, Lovin can lie to him back and forth, and he stays on the path. He doesn't follow through, doesn't become a liar like Lovin, because he serves God in being honest, not Lovin, not himself. And therefore he stays on the path regardless of what happens. And as a result of that, the success and the blessing that he has is also without limit. He became so wealthy just overnight from working with sheep. Even to the extent that later on you will learn that Lavan, his uncle, realized that his own success, that he himself, Lavan also became very wealthy on account of Yankov's work. Lavan had to admit that this success that he has is not natural, it's not normal. And he got this success because of Yankov, because of the blessing that Yankov brought with him. So here already, Yankov has an effect. Lavan had to admit that this is, God blessed me because of you. In other words, Yankov, when he was in Choron, he was truly in Golus. He was not just visiting Golus. He was truly in Golus, truly involved in there. And during this time when he was in Golus, he built up his nation. He married, and he had, in the house of Lavan, he had 11 of his 12 sons. 11 of his 12 sons he had in the house of Lavan. He built a whole nation right there in Chor. So, from any sense of measurement, from any sense of judgment, Yankov, you could say, was a fully accomplished person. First of all, when he came to Lavan, he was already 83 years old. He wasn't a child. He wasn't a youngster. And then by Lavan he worked.
How old he was?
83.
83 or 87? 63 he left, and 14 years he learned. 77.
That's 77.
Question, because when I read Russia, it's not.
No, the 80, that's right. But that actually when he married Leah, he was 83 years old. So he wasn't a youngster.
He married Rachel in 90 or no? He married her
Right away.
right away and
Then he worked in the 70s. And at the end, surely he was a very fully accomplished person. And then we see interesting comments thing in the pasuk. When Yaakov woke up from his dream that Hashem said to him, "I'm going to go with you," Yaakov made a vow, a neder, and he said that Hashem is going to protect me, is going to be with me in this way, in this path that I'm going. And then he says, "V'shavti b'sholem al beis avi." I will return in peace to the house of my father. V'hoya Hashem li l'elikim. And Rashi says, "V'hoya Hashem li l'elikim" means that my God will be Hashem, which means my house, everybody in my house will be with Hashem. There's not going to be any fallout, like Esau, like Ishmael. Everyone in my house are going to be part of Hashem, of service of Hashem. But he says an interesting thing. He says, "V'shavti b'sholem al beis avi." I will return in peace to my father's house. He's serving Hashem. What's so important? What is the meaning? I'll return back to my father's house. What is he, a little child? He has to go back to my father's house. And later on, when you will learn at the end of this parsha, it says again, when Yaakov decided that he has to run away from Laban, you will learn later on that Yaakov had to decide he has to run away. So it says he picked up and he took everybody, and he went to go back to his father Yitzchak. Again, the second time. Then the third time in next week's parsha, when Yaakov came to Eretz Canaan, came home, it says again, Yaakov came in peace to his father's house. Huh?
There's a war with Esau, now he's a war with Lavan.
Now he's a war with Lavan. What?
If he's in war with Lavan, he's coming home in peace. He's coming home in peace.
Oh no, because all the wars that he had, he was in wars, but who conducted the war? Hashem conducted the war. Lavan chased after him, and he wanted to destroy him, but he couldn't do anything. Esau came towards him with 400 men, as you learn, he couldn't do anything. It was a difficult thing. Hashem guarded him the whole time. And then finally he came, it says he came to his father's home. So it's interesting, it's something that strikes you and say, Yaakov is coming to his father's home. What does it mean he comes to his father's home? Yaakov had his own development, his own nation, his own family that he built up. Surely his father is his father. What is the significance of his coming back to his father's home? Wherever Yaakov was Yaakov. He was teaching his children about Hashem even when he was in Choron and by Lavan. It's the same Yaakov. So, in simple terms, and then we'll go a little deeper. In simple terms, it means that if Yaakov is going out and is going into Golus, no matter how successful and safe, how successful he is in Golus, and how whole he is when he comes back, when he consider that he was totally successful and he did his mission completely without being affected by it, is when he comes back to his father's home and he fits right in. He comes to his father's home. His father's home was always in Eretz Canaan, was always in the Holy Land, was always in Kedusha. Didn't go into Golus, didn't deal with Laban, didn't deal with Choran, and with Tesa, with all of these things. And Yankee went through 20 years, 22 years of dealing with all of these things. And in an involved way. And then he comes home, he comes back. He comes back, not just that he comes back and he was not hurt, but he fits right into his father's home. He was totally unaffected by this whole thing. He comes home, he doesn't feel a stranger. Oh, I was in a totally different environment, a totally different world. How can I fit in here? I feel so uncomfortable, so out of place. No such thing. He comes back. Bisholim, he enters his father's home. His father's home, Bisholim, fits right in. He's back home. Like nothing happened. Of course, a lot happened. But everything that happened serves only to strengthen him, only to make him greater, not to detract, not to lower him, that he doesn't fit in. Not only does he fit in, but he brought with him all the spiritual riches that he was able to, that he got from there. This principle that Yankiv said, Hashem watches me, that's fine. Hashem will give me nosan, lechem le'echel, and give bread to eat, and beged lilbush, and garments to dress. It's all very good. But I also need, ultimately, to come back b'sholem al beis avi. That this whole venture should only serve positive and not negative. I can come back, like I said, as if I never left, except for the positive thing that I get. This is the point that I wanted to discuss over here with us here. Everyone here everyone in the whole world. Today, we're all Baalei Tshuva, because everyone is exposed to the whole world. Some more, some less. Some were actually in Choron and part of Choron, and they had to be broken out of there. Some were visitors in Choron, but everyone was exposed to Choron. Everyone was in Choron.
What do you mean by that? Like,
in Golus, outside of Kedusha. Everyone. And had to be involved. And sometimes it's difficult to extricate yourself and to break out. This is the Golus. This is why Hashem sent us in Golus, like I mentioned in the beginning. Yankee Bovin went to Golus. He was the first one who broke through this path, and so this is how we are going to accomplish to elevate the world. And ultimately, all of us, the whole Jewish nation, was sent into Golus to fully accomplish this task. Everywhere that a Yid, like I said, mentioned, there's everywhere in the world there's a Yid. Everywhere where a Yid is seen, it makes an impression. It makes an impression. We have to understand this. We don't know 5% what we accomplish. Because when a Yid is looked at, even a Yid who is not Chas v'Sholom Shem Teiro Mitzvah, a Yid by nature, by his very structure, by being a Yid, represents godly presence. He believes in God whether he knows it or not. Do you know, for instance, that Hitler in Mach Shmoy, you know what Mach Shmoy means? That his name be obliterated. So he set out a goal to destroy the Jewish people. This was in a land in Germany where the Jewish people were very much assimilated. Not all, huh?
Assimilated, like
Assimilated.
what's
Assimilated means they became part. They became part of the general society. There were still, of course, Jewish communities that were frum, but very few. Generally, in Germany, the assimilation was very, very heavy. The whole reform movement started in Germany, and it created havoc. It destroyed many, many communities in Germany and all over the world. They were assimilated Jews. Assimilated means that they didn't want to know the difference between them and the Goy. They wanted to be like the Goy. Wanted to be accepted. So when it came to Hitler, and he says, let's destroy all the Jews. So people ask him, well, these Jews, they don't want to, they're not Jews. They don't want to be Jews. No, they are Jews. They are Jews. You know how far they were Jews? Even a Jew, Rahman al-Islam, who converted, even Jews who converted to Christianity, to other religions, I think the second or third generation after that, he was still identifying them as Jews. So they're still Jews. Get them to. Why? Because this Russia was sensitive exactly to what a Yid stands for. He was exactly sensitive to it. And this is exactly what he hated. Now people ask, why do Goyim hate Jews? They don't hate Jews, they hate God. And the Jew represents God. And this is what he said. Even though they converted, they still represent that.
You see, Jacobson once came and spoke and says that it actually says that in Mein Kampf, that it says that Hitler said that we need to destroy the moralist God of the Jewish people, and for that we need to get rid of the Jews.
Right. There's an interesting phenomenon. I once was talking to an Italian, a nice Italian guy, talking whatever he's talking. He says, if you need a good doctor, the Italian says, if you need a good doctor, who do you go to? Don't you go to a Jewish doctor? That's what he said. You need a good doctor, who do you go to? Go to a Jewish doctor. Why is a Jewish doctor a good doctor? I mean, Jews are, thank God, a gifted people, they're smart. But why the emphasis on doctors? The reason is that Jews have a different respect for life. This is a natural thing. They have a different respect for life. A Jewish doctor is not just a skilled person who studied medicine. He understands life, and he values life, and he will go all out to save life. Why? Because he has a different perspective. He sees in life, he sees a godliness. He sees that a living human being, this is a godly spirit. And therefore he respects it and is going to do everything to save it. So whatever Yidden are, they have a profound effect on their surrounding. They always represent, there's something true beyond the world. I like it or I don't like it is something else, but that truth is there. This is the purpose of the goals that we are now finishing, that we went through. With God's help, it's going to be finished very quickly. We can't take it too much longer. So this is what Yankiv started. This is what we have to finish. So we came out from a holy land, a holy people, from the Mizamiknos, from Yerushalayim, and we went all over the world. And we came to a point where we became part of Choron. We became part of the people in Choron, part of the people of China, part of the people of India. Became assimilated. We started wearing, so to speak, their clothes. I don't mean clothes per se. We started living with their morals, with their sense of life. Deep down, we were still Jews, but we didn't even know it. And then, with God's help, something happens, and a Yid meets another Yid, and he immediately recognizes him and says, "Hey, brother, we belong together. Teach me." And that's how we collect everybody back, and they come back. And they do tshuva. The word tshuva means to return. Where do you return? When you say return means that you're returning to a place that you were there before. You can't come to a place for the first time, say, "I'm returning." If you come there for the first time, not returning. Why is it called tshuva? Because this is return. Because this is where you started from. This is base of it. This is your father's home. This is where a Yid belongs. But in the meantime, you were all the way out, involved in everything else, and you forgot who you are. You forgot who you are. So when you come back and you start learning, and you start relating to it, and says, "Hey, these are the things that I like. I like this. I like this. I like Torah. I like mitzvahs. I like tzedakah. I like a whole bunch of different things." But look, I like all of these things, but I'm still a stranger because I come from Choron. I don't even know the language of the land. I speak Russian, I speak Italian, I speak Portuguese, I speak all kinds of different languages. I don't even talk the same language. So I like everything, but I'm still a stranger here. So this is what Yankiv Avinu tells us. You have to know that when you come back, ultimately, complete return is when you come back to your father's home. You come back, and at first you feel a little strange. At first you feel like you're coming from a far distant land. But you have to know that in truth, you came back to your home. This is where you belong. This is your home. And when are you completely returned? Thank you, Avinu said, completely returned is not only when I come back safely, all my children are with me, and I have my clothes, and I have my food, and I'm whole, I'm not damaged or anything like that. Complete return is when I come back to my father's home, and I fit right in. I don't feel a stranger. I don't feel that I don't belong there. Even though I learned all of these things, I went through all of that experience. This is an important message for all of us. Everyone, and I said again, I'm not talking about just Tafkir, those who came from really a strange place. Everyone is about tshuva because every person has things that he has to work through. Every person has his nisyonis. No person grows up into adulthood without nisyonis. You know what nisyonis means? Without challenges, without tests. Nobody goes through from childhood into adolescence, into adulthood, and and there were no nisyonis. Everybody has nisyonis, especially in our world. We're all exposed to the whole world. And we all, so to speak, tasted from the Eitz Hadas. And you all think, oh, maybe I know better than the Torah. Maybe I know better than my teacher. Maybe I know, Eitz Hadas, Torah, I know, I can understand myself. And this Eitz Hadas, we know what kind of havoc it can do, what kind of turmoil it can create in a person. Eitz Hadas, the tree of knowledge. You know the story, right?
Maybe not the exact story, but is that true?
The beginning of all troubles, of all sin, came from Eitz Hadas. What's Eitz Hadas? Adam Rishon, the first man, ate from this tree, and this opened up his mind, and he says, oh, I also know. All of a sudden he says, I don't need anything else. Knowledge is enough. I know it all. And that created such havoc that it takes 3, 4, 5,000 years to correct it and to heal us from that tree of knowledge. Of course, after we're healed from this, we'll be greater than it would have been otherwise, because now we have the knowledge also. It's a different type of presence. But everyone, as I said, everyone is challenged. Everyone has to go through a whole process of nisyonis, of being in choron, and dealing with Lavan, and dealing with all kinds of different things. And Esav and Lavan, until he comes back to his father's home. And when he comes back in his father's home, when does he know that he made a complete circle? He went, accomplished his task, fulfilled his mission, and then came back whole, undamaged, unblemished. He comes back to his father's home and he says, I'm here and I feel comfortable. I fit. I'm a full-fledged Jew. I'm not a Jew because I do this and because I do that, because I think like this, I like gefilte fish, I like challah. That's not what makes me into a Jew. I'm a Jew because I'm fully a Jew. I belong here. As if I never left. Of course I left. And because I left, I learned a lot of things. And I accomplished a lot of things. And I am able to elevate and transform all kinds of things that I've experienced outside of Yiddishkeit. But the final thing is, I bring this all my wealth with me, all the sheep and all the oxen and everything I bring with me into my father's home, and I fit right in. This is an important message, very important, that we always have to strive to recognize. And this is not, there's no way to fool oneself. You have to strive to recognize that being a Yid, being a Jew, is a perfectly normal, natural, and real thing. Not something that I have to prove to myself, prove to others. This is me. This is the reality. There's no other reality. There's only one reality. It's only one way that it is. It cannot be any other way. There isn't another. That's when you came back to your father's home and you fit right in there. The father is Yitzchak, the father is Avraham, the father of all Jews, of all the nations. This in conclusion, brings back the point which you make all the time, the famous Rambam, where the Rambam explains how do you force somebody to do a mitzvah that he's obligated to do, like to bring a korban, he is obligated. You force him, you beat him to bring the korban, but a korban is not valid unless he does it willingly. So Rambam says that it's really willing. The fact that he was saying no, that was a superficial thing. But really it is willing. Why? So the Rambam says. Why is it considered? Why is it for sure willingly? Because every Jew wants to be a Jew. He recognizes this. He's in his father's home. He can never divorce himself from his father's home. This is him. The fact that the Yetzer Hara pulls him in this direction and that direction, this is all superficial. It's not the real thing. And when he finally comes back and he says, I want, that's the real person. So this is true from every angle. And from the practical angle, it's important for each one to recognize you come into a Jewish community, you come into Jewish society, and sometimes you feel uncomfortable, you don't know the language, you don't know what they're doing, you don't know the custom, whatever it is. So you feel a little bit a stranger. So you may feel a little bit of a stranger, because after all, you don't know the language, you don't know the custom. But you should never, never doubt that you belong there. That's the important thing. Every Yid belongs in every place where Yidden are. If you come into a shul and they daven a different nusach, not the nusach that you're familiar with. So you feel uncomfortable, you don't know exactly their nusach. That's right, you don't know nusach, but do you belong there? Of course you belong there. I take my tefillin and I daven. Every Yid belongs wherever there's a Jewish community. This is the ultimate reach of tshuva, which means I've completely returned, and when I made a complete circle through the Golus, through whatever it is, the Ukraine or Portugal or Brazil, or wherever Yidden were thrown around, and then I come back. And then, when I come back, I feel wherever I am, I'm in Eretz Yisrael. I can come back to the same country, but I'm in Eretz Yisrael. I'm not there. I'm a Yid. And the Shulchan Aruch says that if you don't know to daven in Hebrew, you can daven in French, in Turkish, in Japanese, in Chinese, whichever way you daven the language. Everybody can, Hashem understands all the languages. There's an interesting thing, I'm mentioning davening. The Shulchan Aruch says that when you stand and daven Shemoneh Esrei, you have to stand straight with your feet together. And you have to recognize you're standing in front of God when you're davening. What happens in your thoughts? What are you thinking at this time? So the halacha is that the first bracha of Shemoneh Esrei, you have to try to concentrate and know what you're saying. Afterwards, even if you don't know what you're saying, you don't think, you're also satisfied. You're also Vayeitseh Shemoneh Esrei. The first bracha, you're supposed to think, and if you didn't concentrate, really you should say the Shemoneh Esrei over again. But there's another point, that in our time, where our minds are so great that we can't concentrate for more than 2 seconds, So then, there's no point of repeating Shemoneh Esrei, because the second time we will all be again, our minds will again stray. So we don't even repeat the Shemoneh Esrei. So we stand the whole Shemoneh Esrei, and we look like we are mamash standing in front of God, and our minds are floating all over the place. And then we remember, oh, when I'm done Shemoneh Esrei, let me double. So for 2 seconds again, I come back here, and then again, other things float in my mind. And this is how we float in and float out, in and out, the whole Shemoneh Esrei. And finish Shemoneh Esrei, we walk out, we look like we really did avodah, we stood Shemoneh Esrei. What's the pshat? How is this Shemoneh Esrei? How is it davening? So it said in Shulchan Aruch, if you stand there and it looks, and you stand there in that form, like you're standing in front of Hashem, you are standing Shemoneh Esrei and Vayeitseh with davening. Why? Because your mind can be floating around, your heart can be floating around, but you, when you stand there, you're making a declaration that I am a Jew and I'm standing in front of Hashem. My mind is not that big, and I can be easily distracted. But where do I belong? I belong here, where I stand. And that's the statement. I belong here because that's where I belong. The fact that my mind is so small and I get distracted and I have all kinds of things bothering me, so I have to grow up and become more mature and become, okay, with God's help. But that doesn't change who I am. The main thing is I'm here. And that's why I can stand Shemoneh Esrei with my feet together, and I'm truly standing in front of Hashem, because me, the whole me, is standing in front of Hashem. Even though my mind doesn't even know how to concentrate for more than 2 seconds again. This is the pshat, V'shavti b'sholom al beis Avi. You come back to your father's home, and you fit right there, even though you came from a strange land. Maybe it will help each one of us that we should remember this with strength, with confidence. Remember who we are, that we all belong in Beis Avi, my father's home. No matter what our backgrounds, what kind of experience and exposures we had, we belong there, and we want to belong there. This is our place. And recognizing this, Hashem gives us the strength to overcome our distractions. Distractions, I don't know what distractions means. To overcome our short-sightedness, and to develop more and more that we should not only be there with our whole, but to be there with all our faculties, with our mind and with our heart and with everything else. And this, Mitzvah Hashem, will bring us into Mashiach.
Amen.
Thank you. Okay. You can hear a recording. You can listen to it. Yeah.